December 7th, 1941, a day of infamy. Even as Japanese diplomats were conferring with Secretary of State Hull on peace measures, Nipponese planes were swooping down on Pearl Harbor. This pictorial record includes both U.S. films and pictures made by the enemy as they dropped their load of death on the naval base, on Wheeler Field, on civilian homes and schools. 100 Japanese planes and a number of midget submarines took part in the attack. In an hour and 5 minutes, the battleship Arizona was completely destroyed and 4 others severely damaged. Within hours, the United States declared war.
It's been nearly 70 years since Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. Joining us now, the author Craig Shirley gives us new details in the book December 1941, 31 Days That Changed America and Saved the World. Craig, good to have you with us.
Thank you.
You've written the book that John Meacham wished he wrote.
Let's start now.
I've only read it 4 times in the last
Go there,
10 minutes.
Willie.
He's a little bitter.
There are several books Craig has written.
That hurts.
Well, in his defense, it's mutual.
He's busy enough. Let's talk about December 7th, 1941. That day, we've had September 11th, we had the financial crisis of 2008. We consider those shocks to our system, but they didn't change us in the way that December 7th, 1941
December 7th
did.
changes everything, and it's probably the only time in the history of this country where it was as unified as it was. Not even July 4th, not even April of 1861, not even September 11th. There's one word to describe America after December 7th, and that's unity. There's no disagreement about anything. Everybody's very willing to give the president all the powers he needs to conduct the war. The volunteers step forward. Recruiting offices have to go on 24/7, Navy recruiting offices, because they can't handle the people turning out.
We've spent all morning talking about partisanship, a frozen government.
It's been a little depressing.
Describe what America was like on December 5th, that Friday, in terms of foreign policy debate.
Isolationist. 100% isolationist. There'd been John, there'd been a poll by Gallup in the months before. 70% of the American people were opposed to getting involved in the European war. There was no interest whatsoever. We were putting our toe in the water with Lend-Lease and with the Atlantic Charter, which is what FDR wanted to do to help out Churchill and the Allies, but that was about as far as the American people were willing to go. They did not want to send troops into another European conflict. You know, World War I left such a bad taste in Americans' mouth that after 1919, there was a saying in America that said, well, all we got out of World War I was debt and death and George M. Cohan.
And in fact, America was really ignoring what was happening. The genocide had begun, and
it was being reported, but nobody was doing anything about it.
Nobody wanted to know.
Yeah, right. I mean, it was being reported. Time magazine had a very detailed story about the final solution that Hitler was carrying forward, and they had a detailed story about what was going on in Europe, what was happening to the Jews of Europe, but nobody reacted to it. It just, the report came out and it sunk without any comment.
John, you wrote an entire book, essentially, Franklin Winston, about Winston Churchill trying to get Franklin.
I wrote the whole book.
Yes, yes. No.
I thought Craig Shirley wrote that.
At Vanderbilt, they don't.
You know what? Forget it. I was going to give you credit in your book. Forget it. We're just going to go. No, but about Winston Churchill trying to drag Franklin Roosevelt into the war, and he didn't enter the war until December 7th, 1940.
Well, he didn't enter the war actually until the Churchill was most worried about until December 11th.
Right.
And so what I want to ask Craig is, I've always thought the longest 4 days of Winston Churchill's life was when we were in the Pacific War, but people forget we did not declare war on Hitler until Hitler declared war on us.
On December 10th, right. What is interesting is that Churchill wrote in his memoirs, he was actually almost gleeful about the Pearl Harbor attack, because then he knew it would finally get America into the war. But there was no, even after the 7th, the attack, we declare war on the 8th. FDR goes to war Congress. We declare war on the 8th. I detect no national will in this country to get involved in the European war. Everybody was focused on Japan and the Pacific, but there was no will to get involved in the European war until Hitler and Mussolini declare war on us, and then we have to obviously respond. But those 3 or 4 days, you're absolutely right. Winston Churchill had to been on tenterhooks.
Yeah. Churchill said in the memoir, I slept the sleep of the saved and thankful on the night of December 7th, but he was looking back from the 50s when he did that. What would have happened, do you think, if Hitler had not declared war on the United States?
I think we would have gotten into it eventually, but it may have been too late. There have been open talk in London about suing for peace. The war was not going particularly well for the British, as you know. Is that all the focus of the Battle of Britain was on 1940, but even as of 1941, Nazi bombing on Great Britain was very routine, 24 hours a day. So the battle was still going on. We had to go to Lend-Lease because Churchill no longer had the money to purchase our military equipment. So now we had to lend them the money to purchase it. But at some point, Churchill was faced up with the very real possibility that he might have to sue for peace with Adolf Hitler.
So we enter the war and America goes to work. You write a lot in the book about the impact of World War II and December 7th, 1941 on our economy. What was it?
Well, the Office of Production Management tells Detroit, you will produce no more cars for 1942. That's it. You're out of the car business. You're going to start making airplanes. And what's fascinating is that within 30 days, the Ford and Fisher Auto Parts Company manufacture airplanes, bombers, within a month out of...
They retooled that quickly.
Retooled that quickly.
Wow.
Out of parts that were supposed to be for airplanes or for cars, they're now making airplanes. But that was across the board, is that the old Nash company, which was became American Motors, they started producing airplane propellers and started making cars within weeks of the attack.
Wow. Craig Shirley, thank you so much. The book is December 1941. That is worth buying.
Excellent book.
Really, really cool. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Meacham, you missed out.
Another missed opportunity.
Andrea Mitchell, thank you as well. We'll see you at
Thanks,
1 o'clock.
Andrea.
1 o'clock with Mike Bloomberg.
Mayor Bloomberg.
Right here.